guys, if you are new to this channel or stumbled upon this video, I have a whole series of videos on learning Japanese by watching Sailor Moon, going through the very first episode. This is part 2 of the series. It's the third video I've done, but it's part 2 chronologically of the episode. So if you haven't already, go see part 1 of this episode so that it makes sense chronologically to you. Or just keep watching this one. Anyway, in this scene of the first episode of Sailor Moon Classic, it's going to be a lot of teenager dialogue because it consists of Usagi, Naru-chan, her best friend, and Umino, the nerd who kind of hangs around them and tries to be their friend, and kind of is and kind of isn't, at least the beginning of the series. Anyway, let's get to it. So Usagi just got back her English test on which she scored a 30, and she's sulking with her friends at recess or lunch. So mo, I covered that in the first part of this. It means God, geez, oh my God. It has that kind of frustrated vibe to it. So tada. So if you have a person's name followed with a small tsu and then a tada at the end of that, so Usagi tada or Usagi-chan tada, this tada ending is like, it really emphasizes that, oh, you crazy person, oh, you stupid person, I'm frustrated by you, why must you always do this? It's usually followed up with some kind of complaint of some kind, or some kind of rebuke, some kind of, hey, you weren't supposed to do that thing. Or you can do it by itself. You can be like, Usagi-chan tada. You can kind of be like, oh, you big silly. It can be kind of flirty too if you use it that way. Shinjirannai. So we are teenagers. We are contracting our words. The correct way of saying that is shinjirarenai. Shinjiru is I believe or believe. There's no pronoun in there. It's just to believe, the verb believe. Shinjirarenai means I can't believe. So shinjirannai, we're just contracting it. We're taking out the re, darenai, because that's kind of hard to say, and we're just going rannai. So shinjirannai instead of shinjirarenai. So shinjirannai means like I don't believe it. So the whole sentence is like, geez, Usagi, I don't believe you. Or like, oh my God, Usagi. And then she follows it up with, onna no ko no kuseni hayaben nante sa. So onna no ko, I went over this in another video, but onna no ko means girl. Onna means female or woman, and then no changes the female or woman into kind of an adjective, and then ko is child. So female child, girl. It does not mean the woman's child, as I used to think when I was learning Japanese first, but yeah, it is girl. So onna no ko no kuseni. So this blank no kuseni, it means even though you are a blank. So onna no ko no kuseni is like, hey, you're a girl. You're supposed to be something else. Or, hey, you're a girl. You're not supposed to be something. So a good sentence would be something like, neko no kuseni osanpo ga suki. And it's like, even though you're a cat, you enjoy going on walks. It's like, that's supposed to be a dog thing. So neko no kuseni. It's like, I could laugh. I could point at the cat and laugh, like, neko no kuseni. It's like, look at that cat. She thinks she's a dog. It's that kind of feeling to it. So something no kuseni. And it usually is sort of sarcastic or negative. You don't say that positively, like, even though you're young, you're so smart. You wouldn't say like, even though you're so young, no kuseni, you're so smart. Like, that's kind of a sarcastic, insulty way of saying that. So that would be sort of passive aggressive if you use no kuseni. So no kuseni is kind of sarcastic, but they're friends, so she can talk to her that way. So, hey, you're a girl. You're not supposed to do the next thing I'm going to tell you. Hayaben, that is 2 kanji compound that was created from hayai, which means early, and then ben, which is the first kanji in bento, which most of you probably know it means lunch, box lunch. So hayaben, what do you think that means? Yeah, so early lunch, meaning you ate your lunch early. It's a term that they have for if you go to school and you have your bento, you're supposed to save it for lunch, you're supposed to eat it at lunch, but Usagi, as you may recall from the last scene, was eating it out in the hallway when she was put out there because she was bad. It's considered uncouth. It's not considered very ladylike, you know, to eat your lunch, kind of sneak eat your lunch at school before it's lunchtime. It's generally considered a social no-no. So hayaben, nante. So I went over this in another video as well. So nante means a thing like that. And again, it has a sarcastic thing to it. Otoko no ko nante minna warumono. It's like, stupid boys, they're all bad people. And you can do that just by itself, like otoko nante. It's like, boys. It has that kind of vibe to it. So hayaben nante, it's like that eating lunch early thing. And then the sa at the end of that is, it's very slangy. It's very, teenagers tend to use this a lot. I noticed this a lot when I first went to Japan and started going to high school. Everyone was like ending their sentences with sa. It's kind of like in a way. You use sa at the end of a sentence like that to sort of reference. It's like, you're like so dumb for eating your lunch early even though you're a girl. You know, dude. It kind of has that ring to it. So the whole two-sentence sentiment is, God, Usagi, I can't believe it. You, like, why are you eating your lunch early? You're supposed to be a lady. And Usagi's response is, datte sodachi zakari nandamon. Datte means but it kind of means like a, hey, let me defend myself kind of but. Sodachi zakari. So that means like you're still growing. And then nandamon is this very emphatic, nanda is like very emphatic way of saying something. So she's very emphatic and like very sure of herself when she's saying sodachi zakari. So the thing about Japanese, the culture and the language, is people tend to be vague. They never tend to outright say things. You can tell the closeness between two people. You can tell that their relationship is close if they don't speak vaguely. Like right now, Naru and Usagi are speaking very directly with each other, and they're not using polite forms, but also they're just being they're saying what they mean. They're not beating around the bush. And they're being very emphatic about it. And Usagi right there, when she's saying nanda, that's like very like, I'm still growing, dude. And like, I'm sure of this. And like, oh no, I have a retort for you. And then the mon at the end of that is this sort of sassy humph feel to it. So, hey, I'm still growing kind of vibe to it. And then she says, 親友なら私の気持ち分かってくれるでしょ? 親友. So if you look at the two kanji that make up 親友, what they mean individually, so together, what do you suppose that means? Best friend. So nara means if you are. It's kind of like a beginning of an if-then statement. So 親友 nara means if you are my best friend, or since you are my best friend, but it's like if you're really my friend, it has that kind of sort of a guilt-trippy vibe to it. Watashi no kimochi. So watashi no, we already went over, means my, and it's a feminine and also kind of generic way of saying my. Kimochi means feelings, so watashi no kimochi means my feelings. Wakatte kureru desho. So wakatte is the te form of wakaru, which is to understand. So if you add a kureru to the end of the te form of a verb, I already went over this in the scene where Usagi and Luna talk for the first time. We go over the te ageru and te kureru form of the verbs. But just as a refresher, if you didn't see that video, if you're waiting to watch it chronologically, the te form of a verb followed by kureru means you are doing this verb for someone, like, and it's a good deed that you are doing. So wakatte kureru means that Naru would understand, like in a giving, nice sort of way. That Naru would understand for Usagi's benefit kind of thing. It's different from just wakaru. It's like wakatte kureru means like you would do this and it would be a good thing that you're doing for me. And then desho is like, you know, like, isn't it the case that? Am I not right? So the whole sentence, like if you were really my friend, you'd understand. It kind of has this guilt-trippy, sassy vibe to it. And then she follows it up with Naru-chan, is this sort of like, come on, Naru, like, if you really loved me, you'd understand, kind of feeling to it. And then Umino makes his grand entrance. Usagi-san, テストどうでした? He says, Usagi-san, テストどうでした? So he calls her Usagi-san. That shows that their relationship is not as close as her relationship with Naru. It's not necessarily that he's being polite, okay? So a lot of people are under the misapprehension that san automatically always means Miss, Ms, Mr. It does not. It does not mean that at all. San is just a very generic default suffix that you add to somebody's name. You never want to be yobiste, which is no suffix at all if it's somebody you don't know very well, or if you're, don't have a close relationship. That can come across as rude or kind of like overly familiar, like you're trying to be more with somebody. Like, hey, we're not that close, we're not friends, or hey, we're not like dating or anything. Like, don't yobiste me. So san is just a very generic default suffix that you just add to somebody's name, and it doesn't mean Mr. or Ms. It's just generic suffix. But it does show, like, because he's not calling her Usagi-chan, it does show that, they're not like childhood friends or anything. They're just, generic classmates. So Usagi-san. Testo. So testo is a borrowed word. Test, but testo usually in Japanese schools, testo means like more like a midterm. It means more like a bigger exam rather than like a quiz or a smaller test. Do deshita. So the whole phrase do deshita is how did it go? And it's polite as well. Do means how, and then deshita is the past tense of des. So do des is like how is it? How is it going? Like how is it? What do you think? But do deshita is like how did it go? So he's saying, oh Usagi, how was your test? Like how did your test go? How did your midterm go? And then Usagi just whimpers, Umino. Like, hi, I don't want to talk about it, kind of. And then Naru-chan leaps to Usagi's defense and says, この落ち込み見りゃわかるでしょ? So again, there's that でしょ kind of ending. It's like, hey dude, you should know. So この落ち込み. So この means this, this thing that I am presenting, close to me, this thing. Ochikomi means like this state of gloom, this depressed state, this depression that you're seeing right here. Kono ochikomi. Mirya. All right, so here's another way that Naru-chan is being lazy and contracting words because she's a teenager and she's speaking with her peers and she's comfortable. So mirya is actually the contraction form of mireba. So mireba wakaru, that means if you see, you understand. So mirya wakaru is also if you see, if you look, you understand. Desho, again, like, hey, dude. So, この落ち込み見りゃわかるでしょ? It's like, can't you see by the way she's being depressed? Like, that's your answer right there. Look at her, she's crying. she's obviously upset, dude. So don't ask, that's insensitive. It's that vibe to it. And then, so she's like, hey dude, be sensitive. She's crying. And then she goes on to say, ダメだったに決まってるじゃない. So she's basically like, whoa, look, can't you see she's depressed? Of course, be tactful, dude. It's obvious that she didn't do very well. That's the subtext, she's just saying, hey, give her some space. She's depressed. And then she goes on and explicitly says, dame means like no good, bad. Ni kimatteru. So anything ni kimatteru means of course it's anything. So in this case, dame. So like of course she failed. And then the janai at the end is like dude, totally. It doesn't mean the reverse of it. It doesn't mean no. Like janai, if you add it to like kirei means pretty. Kirei janai means not pretty. But if you end a sentence, if you end a whole sentiment with janai, like with that sort of like sassy kind of tone to your voice, you're not negating everything that you said before that. So it's different from that. It's like, it's more just a like, dude, like duh kind of ending to the sentence. So the first sentence, she's like, hey, give her some space. Can't you tell she's depressed? And then she's like, of course she failed, duh. And then Usagi whimpers. And then Naru-chan goes, kizutsuita, gomen. So kizutsuita is the past tense of kizutsuku, which is to be hurt. Like, it can be to be hurt physically, but it's like usually to be hurt emotionally. So like, have your feelings hurt. So it's like, oh my God, did I hurt your feelings? And then gomen is like, I'm sorry.
そんなに落ち込むことないですよ。僕も今回手を抜いたもんで100点取れなくて。
And then Umino consoles her and says, そんなに落ち込むことないですよ. そんなに means in that way, and I'm talking to you. そんなに. That so, it's the aso kodo word thing. If you've taken Japanese 1, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't taken Japanese 1, you'll be like, huh? But basically, そんなに means in that way that you are doing. そんなに. So そんなに落ち込む. 落ち込む, remember from earlier, 落ち込み, somebody being depressed. 落ち込む is just the verb to be depressed, to be down in the dumps. So そんなに落ち込む means like being down in the dumps the way you are, like that, to that extent that you are being down in the dumps. KOTO. So I did a whole video explaining KOTO for one of my patrons. If you're a $10 patron, incidentally, you get to decide a video that I make, and I'll make it. Anyway, he wanted me to make a video about KOTO, so I made a whole video about KOTO. So what KOTO does is it changes everything that came before it into a concept. So he's basically just put that whole thought of being depressed to the extent that you are, just put that whole thought in brackets. Basically, that's what KOTO does. It conceptualizes it. And then nai desu yo. So in this case, nai desu yo, it does mean I am negating everything that I said before. So the thought in brackets, being so depressed the way you are, nai desu yo, you should not be. There's no reason to be, really. There's no need to be that depressed. So literally it's like, there's no need for you to be depressed to the extent that you are, but you know, in better English, it's like, hey, you know, take it easy. Like, don't kill yourself over this. Don't beat yourself up over this. And then Umino, in his attempt to console her, says, 僕も今回手を抜いたもんで100点取れなくて. So, 僕 is the kind of gentle masculine version of I, the pronoun I and me. So, 僕も, so I also. He's trying to kind of sympathize by like, hey, I have the same problem. You know how people try to sympathize that way, but it does not make things better, by the way. If you're like, oh yeah, my life sucks too. And he's going to proceed to tell her his life sucks too, but does not. Okay, so 僕も今回. Konkai means this time. Literally, it means this time. But in context, it means this test, this exam. 手を抜いた, so that is an expression. 手を抜く or 手を抜いた means like I removed my hand, but it's an idiom. It's an expression that means that you kind of slacked off, that you didn't like try as hard as you could have. You kind of went lax a little bit. So 僕も今回手を抜いた means like, oh, this test, this exam, this time, I kind of slacked off a little bit. I didn't put in my best. 100点 means 100 points, so a perfect score. 取れなくて, that is the te form of 取れない, which means to not be able to get. So 100点取れない means not able to get a perfect score of 100 points. So he's like, oh no, don't worry, don't be so sad, Usagi. I mean, I did horribly on this test too. Like I was unable to get 100 points this time because I slacked off a little bit. And then he tries to cheer her up the other way. You're not supposed to cheer people up by belittling the situation and like, it's not a big deal anyway. Like tests are stupid anyway. So he says,
まあテストなんてゲームですよ。
and that's kind of like a, well, like, testo, exams, nante. So there's that testo nante. So last time it was hayaben nante. That means stupid, eating lunch early. Testo nante, it's like, tests, test schmests. That's nante. Game desu yo. Game is game. Gameu, borrowed word for game. So, test schmest. Tests are just game. It's all a game, really. And after all of Umino's really pathetic attempts to cheer up Usagi in all the ways you're not supposed to cheer someone up, Naru-chan responds with yana yatsune. So ya is bad, evil, icky, lame. Insert word for thing I don't like. And it is a na adjective, so you add a na after it. So yana means just bad. Yatsu is a slangy, kind of mean version for a person. It's not always rude. You can call someone an iyatsu, by the way, and that means like, oh, I like that guy. Oh yeah, that guy. Or, she's a cool chick. It's like that kind of ring to it. But here, you know, she's like, you suck. It's kind of like, but because she's saying like yanayatsu, like she's kind of talking about him to his face. So also dissing him a little bit in a way. And the ne at the end is like, it's like this, you're asking for confirmation from the person you're telling it to, and you kind of already know that that person agrees with you. So it's kind of like, he's such a horrible guy, isn't he? Huh? You know, it's literally what it means, but she's basically just sassing and dissing Umino to his face. And that doesn't really cheer up Usagi. She's still kind of whimpering and feeling down in the dumps. She's still ochikomu. So Naru tries to cheer her up.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Hi friends, this channel is small and only makes about $25 a month from AdSense revenue. Oh great, another YouTuber telling us to give her money.
Ha! Sorry, dude. I can't even afford to buy myself coffee.
Yes, go get a real job. If you want to support this channel but don't have any money to spare, check out my Amazon shop. Shop for items you would be buying anyway, like food or Japanese textbooks or studio lights, and I get a cut of the sales at no extra cost to you. Check out the link to my Amazon store on the screen or in the video description below.
Back to the show.
And she says, ne. So this whole ne means like, oh, listen to what I have to say. Like, hey, listen. Seira V ga sa. So Seira V is Sailor V. Ga, so Sailor V is the subject of what she's going to talk about because you followed it up with ga. That is the subject marking particle. So Seira V ga sa. So this whole sa thing again, it's like, let me tell ya about this thing, and I'm slangy because I'm a teenager. So Seira V ga sa, it's like, oh dude, let me tell you about Sailor V. Like, oh, I got some juicy Sailor V gossip to tell you. Listen, buckle up. It's that kind of feeling, but still kind of cash. I'm a teenage girl. Mata arawaretan datte. So mata means again, arawareta means appeared. It is the past tense of to appear, not to seem, but to like poof, appear. And then she ends it with that, which is again this emphatic, I know this to be true. And then she finishes it with a small tsu followed by a te. So anytime you have like a small tsu followed by a te after a big statement, what that does is it basically says, this statement that I said, I heard it from somewhere. So the small tsu followed by a te is kind of like a quote. It's kind of like end quotation marks. So, mata Seira V ga arawaretan da is like the phrase. It's like, Sailor V made another appearance. And then te, it's like, I heard that Sailor V made another appearance. And then she follows that up with kita. So, kita is the past tense of kiku, which is to hear. So, kita is like, did you hear? It's like, did you know that? Usagi asks, Seira V? And then Naru says, so. So the so. Anytime anybody goes so, or so, it's basically their way of saying, yes, correct. What you just said is correct, or exactly, indeed, but modern slangy. Hoseki is jewels, gems, precious stones. Goto is like a robbery. So hoseki goto is like the jewelry robbery. No, so the stolen jewelry, put that in brackets. No, that's like apostrophe S after the jewelry robbery to describe the next noun that's going to come after that, which in this case is hannin. Hannin means the culprit, the criminal. So the jewelry thief, like the jewelry robbery criminal. So the criminal involved, responsible for the jewelry robbery, basically. Or in cleaner English, the jewel thief. So that whole hoseki goto no hannin, put that thought in brackets. O, so if you add the particle o after that, it means a verb is about to happen to the thing that came before o, which in this case is the jewelry thief, basically. Tsukamaechatta. So that comes from the root verb tsukamaeru, which means to capture or to arrest. And then 捕まえた would be the past tense of that, is arrested, captured. And then if you change, if you drop the ta and change it to chatta, that means that, oh my God, this thing happened that like, it'll blow your mind, or it wasn't supposed to happen, or it happened, like it finally happened, and now a conclusion has been made. So if it was just 捕まえた, it means, oh, they caught the jewel thief. But 捕まえちゃった, it has a little more weight to it. It's like, oh my God, they captured it, and now he's behind bars. It's done, it's over. He's no longer on the lam. And then the no yo, it's like, did you know? And it's also emphatic. It's like, oh yeah, dude, she caught the jewelry thief. Usagi responds with, hey, sugoi. Hey is a very common way that Japanese people express some sort of like, whoa, dude, what you just said is really amazing. They'll just go, hey. So it's like, whoa. Really, it's like, whoa. Sugoi is like amazing, or that's awesome, or I'm impressed. And then Naru-chan agrees. She says, sugoi yo ne. So it's like, yeah, dude, isn't it awesome? And then Usagi says, Seiravi tte nani? So seiravi, you know, and then the te, the small su followed by the te, it means the quotation marks, basically. So this sailor V of whom you speak, basically. Seiravi tte nani? Nani means what? So it's like, what's sailor V? And then Naru-chan gets pissed and says, 知らないのに感心しないでよ. Shiranai means to not know something. Shiru is to know something. Shiranai is to not know something. Shiranai no ni. So no ni is kind of like kuseni. It's kind of like, even though you don't know. So shiranai no ni is like, even though you don't know. Kanshin means, kanshin suru means to be awed by something, and to kind of agree with somebody and have a moment. So kanshin suru is to be awed by something and be like, whoa, yeah, I agree, that's awesome. And then kanshin shinai means the opposite of that. The negative form of a verb followed by de. So kanshin shinai de, minai de, utawanai de, and you're saying it like just isolated by itself, like utawanai de or minai de or kanshin shinai de. You're basically commanding somebody to not do something. So if I say minai de, like I cover myself, it's a very common anime thing. Minai de, it means, hey, don't look at me, but I'm commanding you not to look at me. If I just said minai, it means just isolated, don't look at. But if I say minai de and I'm talking to you, it's like, hey, you don't look. So kanshin shinai de is like, hey, don't like act all enthralled with me, even though you have no idea like who Sailor V is. So a quick note about my English translations. I do what is called localizing in these translations. So my translations are going to be how I think it should sound if it's originally written in English. So it's not going to be exactly the way that it is in Japanese. They're not literally translated. So when I give you the definitions, when I break down what everything means and tell you what everything means, it's going to be more literal when I break it down for you and tell you what it means. But when you read the subtitles of my translation, just so you know, that's like if it were in really, really good English, if I were originally writing this series in English, not translating it, that's how it would sound. It's not a mistranslation, and it is in fact what I feel to be a good translation. But just to explain why my translations on the subtitles are different from what I tell you.
セーラー V とは今巷を賑わせているセーラー服の正義の味方。
So Umino, because he's a nerd and he's pedantic and he's going to explain everything, he says seira V to wa. So anything to wa means a word on this thing, or I will explain about this thing. So allow me to explain. Basically, allow me to explain about Sailor V. 今巷を賑わせている Seira fuku no seigi no mikata. So ima means now, right now, presently. Chimata o nigiwasete iru. That is an expression, and it is kind of like I had to actually look it up. I had never actually heard it before. And it's kind of something that a smart person would say, or it's like Umino. So it means everyone's talking about, basically the talk of the town. So presently, the talk of the town, seira fuku no, so of a sailor suit or sailor suit clad, wearing a sailor suit. Seigi no mikata, so many no's right after another. So seigi no mikata, seigi means justice, mikata means an ally of. So seigi no mikata means like, literally it means an ally of justice, a champion of justice, but really it's superhero, or a hero, basically. So seira fuku no hero means a sailor-suited hero. In this case, no is not really apostrophe S, but it is turning the noun before it kind of into an adjective for the next noun. So it is a sailor-suited superhero. What kind of sailor-suited superhero is it? She is a sailor-suited superhero that is currently the talk of the town. So you see how that whole sentence was rearranged?
実は警視庁の特捜班って噂もあるんです。
And then he goes on like, hey, just between you and me, 実は. So 実は means like, actually, or truth be told, or the truth is. 警視庁の特捜班. So 警視庁 is the police station. 特捜班, and 特捜班 is like special investigator. So 警視庁の特捜班 altogether is like a special investigations unit. And then that whole thought, put that in brackets. So special investigative unit for the police. Small tsu te, so we're sort of like referencing that. So teyu uasa. So there is a rumor. So uasa is rumor. There's a rumor that says she is a special investigative unit with the police. So you basically do that whole thought backwards. Instead of special investigative unit with the police, said rumor. It's like, rumor has it that she's with a special investigative unit with the police. And then he finishes that whole thing with mo arun desu yo. So, mo arun desu. And he finishes that whole thought with mo arun desu. So mo means also. So, there's also a rumor, a rumor that she's also with a special investigative unit with police. And then mo aru. So aru means there is or it exists. So it's like uwasa mo aru means, hey, there's also a rumor that she is with special investigative unit with the police. And then the ndes is I'm explaining something to you and I'm pretty confident about it.
そんなのが現れたんだ。世紀末ね。
Then Usagi says, そんなのが現れたんだ。Sonna no wa. So sonna no means like that kind of thing, that sort. And it's not very polite. It's kind of like, oh, that kind of thing, that lot, that sort. We don't get your kind around here. It's that kind of vibe to it. So sonna no wa, the particle means we're talking about the thing that came before it. The thing that came before wa is the topic of the sentence. So sonna no wa, she's referencing Sailor V, the special investigative unit. Pretty weird, trippy stuff, right? Sonna no wa arawareta. So arawareta, you already know, means appeared. Poof, kind of appear. And then nda at the end is like, oh, so that's the case. And there's a cat scratching at my door. And often if you add arawaretanda, like the nda at the end of a sentence with that kind of inflection, it means like, oh, like now I understand this thing because you've explained it to me. Versus, そんなのは現れたんだ! You're being more emphatic and like, I am informing you all about this thing. But if you're like, そんなのは現れたんだ! Like, oh, okay, now I get it. So this thing. Yeah, so, そんなのは現れたんだ! She's like, oh. It's like, so that kind of, thing is popping up. And then she says, Usagi, she's kind of funny. I don't think that the dubs and subs that I've seen really captured her spirit very well. And honestly, I hated Usagi until I learned Japanese. And then when I learned Japanese and rewatched Sailor Moon, I love Usagi. And it's lines like this that make me really like Usagi. So she says, Seikimatsu ne. So Seikimatsu, it literally means like the end of a century. But it's kind of like the end times are upon us, I guess, or it's the sign of the end times, or the apocalypse is near. So that's kind of what she's saying.
でもさ、宝石って綺麗だもん。強盗しちゃう気持ちわかるわ。
And then Naru tries to lighten up the mood by saying, でもさ. So, でも means but, and then sa, again, this teenager, like, but you know, I'm gonna tell you this thing, like, 宝石って. So, 宝石, jewels, gemstones, and then the small tsu followed by the te. So, let me tell you a thing about gemstones. 綺麗だもん. So, 綺麗 is pretty. だもん, again, is that emphatic, well, you know, I have this thing to say, sassily. So, but dude, gemstones are so pretty, you know? 強盗しちゃう気持ちわかるわ. So, 強盗しちゃう. So, 強盗する is to rob, to steal, to burgle. And if you change the suru to しちゃう, it's like kind of like that bad version of the verb. It's like to accidentally do something or to do something to bad results or to do something to some kind of completion. So, you know, to steal something, I acknowledge that stealing is bad, basically, the way you're phrasing this verb. I acknowledge that it is bad, but I can understand, you know, stealing. So, 強盗しちゃう気持ち, feeling, わかる. Again, this is like the third or fourth time wakaru has come up in this video. Understand. And then wa is this very emphatic and feminine soft way of ending your sentence. So she's saying, but I can understand why he'd want to steal those gems, because they're really pretty, dude.
そうよね。私ダイヤのリングが欲しい。
And then Usagi agrees, そうよね. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, you're right, you know. Like, totally. Atashi is the feminine version of I. It's a younger feminine version. Teenage girls use it a lot. Daya no ringu. So notice she did not follow atashi with wa or ga or any particle at all. You'll find that in casual conversational Japanese, they often drop particles. And you can still understand what people are saying miraculously. They'll sometimes drop particles and pronouns. But yeah, she's dropping the particles. You don't really need it. Daya no ringu. So daya is their borrowed word for diamond. So daya, they just use the first part. Daya no ringu. So again, the no in this case, it's not apostrophe S. Most of the examples in this video, no has actually been to change a noun into an adjective. But yeah, that's what it's doing here. It's changing the diamond into an adjective. A diamond ring instead of diamonds ring. It's a ring of diamonds. It is a diamond ring. Diamond is the word we're using to describe the ring. So daya no ringu, diamond ring, ga, so we're using a particle there. So daya no ringu is the subject of what we're talking about. So we're talking about this diamond ring. Ga hoshii, hoshii means to want. So daya no ringu ga hoshii means I want a diamond ring.
私ルビーのピアス。憧れちゃう。
And then Naru says, 私ルビーのピアス. So atashi again, feminine teenage I. Rubii, ruby. No piasu. Piasu is their bastardized version of pierce. Piasu, pierce. So piercing earring. So piasu is their word for earring. Note how it does not at all sound like earring. A lot of Japanese borrowed words are like that. And piasu is a great example. So rubii no piasu is ruby earrings. So she's saying, ooh, me, ruby earrings. That's literally what she's saying, but she's basically agreeing. Usagi wants a diamond ring. Naru's like, oh, I want ruby earrings. And then Usagi says, akogare chau. So akogareru means to long for something, to dream about something. And it can also mean, like if you're akogareru about a person, it means that either you idolize that person, like you want to be like that person, or you have a crush on that person. And usually if you're using it to describe that you have a crush on that person, it means like you idolize that person and you have a crush on that person. But in this case, it's not about a person, it's about the situation of having a bunch of diamonds and rubies. So akogare chau. It's like, my mind is going places. I'm getting some dreams, getting my hopes up. Oh girl, it really, really makes you dream, doesn't it?
そうだ、ウサギ。うちの店でも昨日から宝石のバーゲンやってんのよ。来ない？
And then Naru-chan says, soda. So soda, if you say it like that, is like, soda. It's like, oh, come to think of it, I just got an idea. Uchi no mise. So uchi means home, but it can also mean my or our. And in this case, it does mean that. So uchi no mise means my family's store, or, our store. De mo, so uchi no mise de means like at our store, and then mo is also. So, hey, speaking of gemstones, I know we were talking about that, but hey, I also, our store, at our store, kino kara, so kino means yesterday, kara means since, so kino kara means starting yesterday or since yesterday. Houseki no bagen, houseki, gemstones, no bagen. So again, this no is basically just turning the jewelry gemstone into an adjective for bargain, bargain sale. So houseki no bargain is like a jewelry bargain sale, jewelry sale. Yatten no yo, so she's a teenage girl and she's using contractions. The proper way of saying that would be yatteru no yo, but she changed the ru to so yatten no yo. Yatteru means is doing, is in the process of doing, or having in this case. So our shop, my family's shop, we actually just started doing a jewelry sale yesterday. Konai, so kuru is to come, konai is to not come. But since she's asking her konai, it means don't you want to come? Hey, you want to come? So like if I'm offering you some food and I go tabenai, I'm not telling you don't eat this. I'm saying, would you like to eat this? Whereas if I were to say tabenai de, I'm saying, hey, don't eat that. So, yay, Japanese! It's not at all confusing. And then Usagi goes, houseki no bagen! So, jewelry sale? And then Naru says, atashitachi ni kaeru. So, atashitachi is us girls. Atashitachi ni kaeru. So, atashitachi ni is kind of like to us or for us. Kaeru, kau is to buy. Kaeru means to be able to buy. So, atashitachi ni kaeru means like that we can buy. And then what is it that we can buy? She follows it up with yubiwa, which is ring. That's the Japanese word for ring. They don't always use the borrowed English ringu for ring. So, atashitachi ni kaeru yubiwa means rings that we can buy. Toka, after yubiwa, the toka is kind of like a particle that means and stuff like that, or something, and stuff like that. So, atashitachi ni kaeru yubiwa toka means, oh, they have like rings and stuff that we can buy. And then she follows up that whole sentiment with aru. So, atashitachi ni kaeru yubiwa toka is rings that and stuff that you and I can buy. Aru means exists, or they have, it has. So put that at the very beginning of the sentence. They have rings that even you and I could buy. And then she's following it up again with no yo, which is like, hey girlfriend, I'm telling you this stuff, and you know. Usagi goes, uso! Which means like, oh my god! Literally, uso means lie, or like, you're lying. But it's more like, get out! And then she goes, iku, iku! So, that, if you say it a certain way in certain kinds of anime, that means you're orgasming. But the verb iku, usually, if you're being, a normal person, iku means to go somewhere. So, iku, iku! It means like, oh yeah, I'm so there, I want to go. And then Naru-chan says, ja, kaeri ni oide yo. So, ja means, okay then. Kaeri means the way home. Kaeri ni means like on the way home. Oide means come over or come here. But basically come over, come on over. And then yo is like this, yeah, I'm making this strong statement. So okay, then come on over on the way home from school. Usagi goes, zettai iku. So is like yeah, or okay. Zettai means absolutely, and then iku means to go. So yeah, I'm totally going. I'm definitely going. And then as they're walking away, Usagi goes, hayaku gakkou wannai kana? Hayaku, early. So hayai, we already learned is early or quickly. Hayaku, we're changing that into an adverb. So earlyly, quickly. Gakko is school. Owanai, so that is the lazy contraction teenager version of saying owaranai. And incidentally, like contracting your words isn't exclusively something teenagers do. It's just because they're teenagers, they're very likely to do that. So owaranai is the original verb, and it is the negative form of owaru, which is to end, to be over. So hayaku gakko wa nai means for school to not end quickly. But again, this is sort of one of those double negatives, like, oh man, can't school end early? Kana means you're asking a question, you're kind of wondering. It's like, oh man, can't school end earlier? Kind of thing. And then Umino is just like, Usagi-san, awkward. As he has a crush on her, and he was kind of upset that his chance to talk to her and cheer her up and get her to like him kind of failed. So that's all I have for this scene. I will be making 1 or 2 of these Sailor Moon scene breakdowns every month until I have the whole episode done. So definitely keep checking back for that and go back and watch Sailor Moon.
月の光は愛のメッセージ。
If you love watching anime and have always wanted to use no, that's boring. I just want to get to it. And Usagi's response is,
だって育ち盛り。
Sadachizakari. Oh yeah, this thing. Chimata o something. I need to look that up so I know what it means.